Ready, Freddy. Hi, everyone. Good
Good
morning.
morning. How's
Welcome
it?
to our full live. Oh, go first. We're working out the kinks.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Politics Pop. Today is January 20th, a federal holiday in recognition of Martin Luther King. Thank you for using black bodies to get white people off. And
Mm.
the inauguration day of our 47th president, Donald Trump.
I rarely wear black, but I decided to wear black for that.
I'm wearing my Audre Lorde Your Silence Will Kill You shirt. I don't know if you
Ooh, that's apt.
from the SBG Book Club.
Yes. So I'm allegedly Stephanie, and this is.
Jouelzy, and we're here to give you live news Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're gonna go through the news cycle. Now, Stephanie, did you pull up a quote from Martin Luther King?
Did I pull up a quote?
Yeah.
I pulled up an article because I
Um,
think the articles are apt because people are reframing the quotes and essentially, particularly right wing people, and I would say like lukewarm liberal, also are reframing his quotes as if he was kumbaya at all times. So I instead decided CNN had an article from about 2 years ago. Yeah, from 2 years ago. And they stated how unfavorable Martin Luther King was during his lifetime. Specifically, in 1966, his unfavorable rating was 63%. Included 39% of Americans, mostly white Americans, gave him a -5 rating on a scale with -5 being the least favorable and +5 being the most favorable. It is very interesting how the legacy of Martin Luther King has been whitewashed over the years as a way to say, like, oh, look, America wasn't racist. Look at this wonderful person who was just bringing us together. Whereas his legacy actually is one of being extremely disliked, so much to the point that in tandem with the American government, because they have been sued for this, and that lawsuit was won by the King family, coordinated his assassination, unfortunately. And I think that is important to highlight, particularly when he was murdered. He was murdered because he was helping the sanitation workers strike and fighting on behalf of all working class people, regardless of their skin complexion, which that is often erased from his story. He, towards the later ends of his life, became a staunch socialist.
yeah. The sanitation worker strike in Memphis, Tennessee is at the point where my thesis research starts
Ah.
because I'm looking at the feminization of poverty that happens post the success of the sanitation workers strike in Memphis, because Memphis had a very cronyism, big boys club in their mayoral office. I forget the white man's name who was like mayor for 15 years or something ridiculous, who kind of ran with the big stick and payola and very mafia style political party. And after the sanitation worker strike, which their slogan was "I am a man," succeeded, there was a huge anti-union push. And to this day
Mhm.
in Memphis, Tennessee, you have basically a lot of contract jobs because now Memphis is known for like FedEx,
Mhm.
like shipping depots, a lot of medical supplies come through Memphis, Tennessee. But basically, jobs that do not provide salaries, do not provide the opportunity for unionizing. And that has led to a severe economic decline in that city over the years. So that's where my research actually lies.
Look at that. Because we have our resident public historian here and your favorite recovering lawyer. So we're here to give you all of,
The
the
insights, the
information.
intel, the thoughts, you
Yes.
know? It's always fascinating in history how much American society is built to just disenfranchise African Americans and really any minority in
Yeah.
this country. But anyone who cannot fit into whiteness, this our government structure is set up so well to just kind of, you know, anytime it's stretched out, it just is pulled back in even tighter. And we
Hmm.
have that, signified today with the inauguration of Donald Trump on his second term after 4 years of Joe Biden. We are right back. And it's quite like when you think back to the year that led up to this election cycle, the 18 months that got us here. It is fascinating that like a Donald Trump is I don't think criminal charges against that man meant anything. I always knew that the criminal
No.
charges against him were going to reify him to his MAGA supporter base. So
Hmm.
the fact that like so many Democrats thought that that was the case to land on, especially as there's been a part of the Democratic kind of, maybe not party, but Democrat, what's the word for the people?
Um, Establishment
I'm
or
thinking more of like the reform, the abolish, the defund movements. There's been an agitation in the Democratic Party
oh,
about,
of like a fissure, yeah.
yeah, not relying on a police state, not
Hmm.
relying on police, and it had gotten like a little somewhere, a little somewhere. So why would you then in 2023, 2024 rely on this idea that don't vote for Trump because he's a criminal?
It was honestly, it was all very lazy, and I feel like that's what the two of us have been saying the entirety of the time, which was they decided to run on the same 2016 playbook, and people were tired. People were like, we already did this, why are we doing this
Why
again?
are you telling me this is the
This is
election of
the
my
third time,
lifetime when you were telling me this in 2020, and that's why
for
we
the
were
second
going?
time. Exactly, because that was the
Then
second time they ran it, and we were like, okay, I guess we're in
Joe
a hostage
Biden
situation.
and Donald Trump are but a year apart.
Yeah.
Biden was born in 1952.
You know, the two of
They're
them
4 years
don't
apart. Donald Trump was born in 46.
and Biden was born in 42.
Yes.
Is Donald Trump technically a cusp boomer? Joe Biden is silent generation, solidly,
Yes.
which is fascinating to me. That a lot of our elected officials, people are like, look at the boomers, they're not moving. I was like, these are not even boomers. These are silent generation that are not very silent.
Doesn't ooh what
What year does boomer technically start? The boomer generation.
so Kamala is on the cusp of Boomer Gen X.
Yes. According to the Google, boomers are from 1946, according to Investopedia, 1946 to 1964. So he is an elder boomer, Donald Trump, whereas Joseph Robinette Biden is silent
Silent
generation.
generation. But the idea that two men
No.
just 4 years apart from each other, so what will I'm bad at math, that will make him 80 years old in office?
Yes. Yes. I'm also bad at math, but yes, it sounds right to me.
Donald
It
Trump is turning
sounds
80 years old next
the current
June.
one is already past 80.
I don't, it's crazy, because that's the thing about like the way we were reading every time we wanted to talk about Biden's age and how there was clear signs of
Mhm.
decline, we were being told that that was ageist. But my thing is that the presidential office is extraordinarily stressful.
Yes.
Every president that has gone through a term there has come out looking significantly older. Like look at Obama over
Fully had black head of hair to
went
salt and pepper to deeply gray.
full gray
Hmm.
while in office, which leads me, I guess we can lead into um what I had at the end, but we'll skip around here if it'll pull
Oh
up.
yes, the tweet. Yes, I
Yes.
mean it's a good
So
place.
Stead Hurden of the New York Times quote tweeted Nate Silver, who's known for 538, and people have different opinions of Nate. But I will say Nate and Stead the entire election season were saying Trump is really a threat. Trump is really a threat.
Hmm.
And I think a lot of us were sucked in, myself included. I keep saying this, to social media algorithms and really feeling like there was significant momentum. But Nate was saying the numbers aren't there. And instead, who has the Run Up podcast, was like on the ground. And he's like, people are really turned off.
Hmm.
Anywho, Nate Silver says the emerging portrait from these Biden postmortems is of a president who didn't have a typical president of the United States level of command due to age related decline, and who therefore was serving as a sort of proxy president for the staff, the groups, or whomever had his ear. It's the obviousness that's damning, Instead quotes. And while new details provide clarity, Most don't need inside info to see the con. Republicans didn't. Neither did most voters I met on the trail who wanted more options. Access ambition just blinded liberal political class. The rest of us used our eyes.
I thought that was very apt, to be honest, and succinct in finally having one paragraph of what everyone who did not have access to the political elite saw it for themselves. Because even staunch Democrats had questions, but they just didn't want to voice those questions. And then when you voice them, people, particularly in social media silos, would ridicule you.
And very actively, even in the content creator pseudo journalist class, a lot of people were like, you need to get behind Biden. Like, October 7th, 2023 happens with Israel and Palestine. January rolls around, and the primaries are coming close. And people are immediately like, Palestine is a single ticket issue. You need to get on code. You can't. And I'm like, we can't be critical of Biden, who is a current sitting president, and his administration's deplorable handling of the Palestinian issue, Palestinian genocide, quite frankly. Like,
And it was always a multifaceted issue because then people rightfully, like such as myself, brought up, well, you have various police departments, the NYPD, some of the police departments in Fulton County as well, that are being trained by the Israeli occupation forces, or as they call themselves, the IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces. So we have an exchange program of police brutality in where some of the tactics that the IDF has used against Palestinians have been used against BLM protesters and Black people at large in general. So people always reducing it to a single ticket issue was never factually correct. But
and
when
I
we
feel
brought
like
up that, I was like, what about here? And I was
it
like,
does a
well,
lot of
what?
harm. You don't
It
engage
did a
people with
lot
their
of harm.
interests. That if the Palestinian issue is getting people to pay attention to politics, then you begin that conversation there. Chastising and
Mm-hmm.
dismissing people does not get people engaged to participate in
Yeah.
electoral politics. It basically tells them that electoral politics can do nothing for their interests. And
Mm-hmm.
Biden not engaging with the media, it'll be interesting to see what happens to Trump. And I that's my bigger concern is Trump's mental decline, because JD Vance is not who you want in the president's office. All right.
No.
Um,
I
but
believe he Harvard Law, I think JD Vance is.
he's just young. He's spry. I don't think he's that smart, because what does Harvard law mean? But
Let me see.
we have
Harvard Law, non nepo baby. Oh, Yale Law School. Yes, he went to Yale Law School, and I bring that up to say that JD Vance, as much as his personal politics are very strange, such as the late night talk syndicate rightfully bringing up his very weird fantasies with the couch and whatever have you, he's not a dummy. Particularly so that he wrote his book about growing up in white Appalachia and kind of being adjacent. And basically, the entire book is to chastise white people, which is wild, to chastise white working class people. However, people ate it up. They made him the face of like, see, if you work hard, you too can get away from, unfortunately, your addicted parents, and you can go to Yale and you can do all of this. He then sold a lie that look at big tech. Big tech is doing all these things. Whereas his number one funder, because he's a venture capitalist, is Peter Thiel. Peter Thiel of PayPal. And so I think all of that conniving would lead me to believe that he's much smarter than I think the mainstream media wants to give him credit for, and that he is willing to cause probably like unimaginable policy changes and pain for the rest of us, because the version of America he wants to see is not a version of America that most people agree with, particularly how he feels about women's rights and reproductive rights. It's dismal. It's looking dismal.
all right. Well, let's first look back at Biden, where
Yes.
Politico gets 11 historians to predict how Joe Biden will be remembered.
The broken aviators.
That is
I love that. That's a great touch. That's a great touch. As a student loan debtor, you know what? Joseph can kiss the blackest part of my
a
behind.
tragic element to Biden's presidency. Professor Wellens, who teaches at Princeton,
Mhm.
um, yeah, Should the nation's luck finally run out, though he will be remembered very differently as the last president who observed the rule of law and who stood proudly as the indispensable leader of what was once the free world. Either way, there will be a tragic element to Biden's presidency. To be Irish, Patrick Moynihan once observed, is to know that in the end, the world will break your heart. Irish Joe Biden, who understood that fate all too well, at least tried as president to sustain the core liberal values to which he devoted his life's work. So
Uh,
fascinating to quote Moynihan in that, you know, fuck you too.
hmm. Joseph is going to be remembered as Genocide Joe. And regardless of
Mm-mm.
what I think the established class wants to believe, I think young people are not going to let go of how he treated Gaza and Palestine. And also, probably because people care about their pockets, people are not going to let go of what he did about the student loans and basically what he didn't do. I think people hold, and by people I mean me, a deep-seated grudge now about him flaunting a promise that I always knew he was never going to keep, that I feel resentful that he even flaunted it in my face. And I was like, why did you even put it was unnecessary. It was cruel. It raised my blood pressure. For what reason? For context, because people are like, you need to pay your student loans. In it'll be 5 years next month. I have paid $190,000 to my student loans. And I
Oof.
still owe 6 figures of my hard-earned money. And I still owe
Okay.
6 figures. So for context.
A former White House aide and historian or senior fellow at the Ronald Reagan Institute, Tevi Troy, says that from the role of dragon slayer to the person who enabled the dragon to return. And as
Mhm.
they put it, Biden was forced out of the presidential race by his party before actually facing Trump. But the question about his age had put the Democratic Party in a position where Biden had let the very person who took credit for defeating return to the presidency. In this way, Biden went from role of dragon slayer to the person who had enabled a dragon to return. Ugh.
Hmm.
Victor Davis Hanson says the most radically left wing and polarizing presidential tenure in a century. Okay, we got a conservative historian here.
Hello, because did he forget about Jimmy Carter? Jimmy Carter has much more actual left-wing
They
policies
played in
than
Jimmy
Joseph.
Carter's face so
They
bad.
really did. Poor Jimmy Carter. May he rest
Biden
in
left
peace.
office with 57% public disapproval. The media and leaks from his own staff suddenly confirmed that they had suppressed honest discussion about the president's obvious and long-standing cognitive decline, a debility that had precipitated his historic forced withdrawal as a Democratic nominee and fueled the comeback and eventual re-election of Donald Trump. Unlike Bill Clinton and Barack Obama, who left their two terms with public approval, Biden's 4 years were more unpopular and less successful than even those of similar one term Carter presidency.
It's
All
very
right, Keisha
interesting.
Blaine, who I'm interested in hearing from. I have her book right here. Is this Keisha Blaine? I might be lying. No, that's Blair Kelly.
Hey, Fran.
Hello, Fran. We do have somebody tuning in. I think my Keisha Blaine book is outside. She has a book on working class black folks.
Mm.
Bring I mean, oh yeah, was Nixon more left wing than Joe Biden? That's so interesting because Nixon was just in his own head, to be honest. I think Nixon
He
was
really told on himself and caused his own downfall. It's fascinating.
yeah, when you
He
look at like welfare history, Nixon was like the last president to consider that we needed to elevate the working class and that
Mhm.
he was being moved. I don't know if he had his own personal politic about this, but he was motivated by this idea of wanting to be a winner, that he was engaging
Mm.
with working class and poor activists who were trying to transform welfare into a program that also elevated people out of the working class into the middle class, like people that had low
Mm.
quality jobs, the working poor, and giving them a stipend. Because, well, now the welfare we have, if you work at all, you really can't get assistance.
Yeah,
Um,
they gave it away.
and so I don't know. I think Biden. I think Biden. I don't know. How would you stack up their
Biden is
policies?
center right, in my opinion. Him and his policies are very much center right. Because what is I always forget the term, the Overton window. The Overton window of where we're at with our political landscape now, it's shifted right. And he already called, he's so proud. He's like, I'm a centrist. I'm a centrist. So if we shifted right, that would make him center right now.
Okay, Keisha Blaine, a Black woman historian, says bring Black women into the halls of power.
Oh, this is oh, did you know
Girl,
we
your
were in
identity
power?
politics are tiring even me out.
Wait.
President Joe Biden's term in office resulted in tangible gains for many Americans through his pro-labor, leave it to a Black woman, pro-labor policies and his investments in infrastructure and manufacturing, to name a few. One of the most significant accomplishments was advancing Black women's leadership opportunities. While Black women in the United States have long and storied history of engaging in politics, even when they were barred from the vote, Biden's term
True.
represented a high point in bringing Black women into the halls of power. Keisha, I might want to debate you on this, sis.
I think I respectfully disagree. Because again, representation is not liberation. So just because, we have people in high
Yes.
places with brown faces, what did that do for us?
She says that we got Kamala Harris as his running mate, who he then, once in office, stymies as the vice president. She was an illusory character until she was pushed out into the primary in 2024, mostly because Biden did what Obama did to him. And he had a lot of resentment about his position as vice president under the Obama presidency. And he did the same thing. It's like a hazing process to Kamala, sticking her on as the czar of border control. Okay, Keisha Blaine is also saying, Professor Doctor Keisha Blaine is also saying he appointed Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson as the first Black woman to serve on the Supreme Court, in a court that is 6'3".
Yeah,
Are there
barely.
9 justices?
There are 9, yes.
A 6'3"
There's
court. Thank you,
6'3".
sis.
Yeah.
Thank you for yay. We finally got a Black woman.
She also, I think, to bring up TikTok for 2 seconds, because we'll talk about it in a second, and the entirety of that stunt. That vote to uphold the TikTok ban was unanimous in the Supreme Court. So
I think TikTok presented a bad argument. I personally, in that Supreme Court case, there are no good people. I don't know if I can really
not at
fault
all.
the justices. I think the First Amendment argument was a silly argument. Whatever. We'll talk about that later. What else? Oh, he appointed 39 Black women to the federal judiciary, more than any previous president of the United States. And of his 235 appointments to the courts, an estimated 60% were people of color. We got Corinne Jean Pierre as the press secretary, doing nasty work around
Especially
the Biden administration's response to
woman.
Palestine.
Oh, it hurt my
Nasty work.
spirit.
To the
Watching a
protests
Haitian
happening
woman be
across the
forced to say that.
country. Yeah. Corinne, you was doing some dirty work on
It was sad, particularly because Haitian people have as a fellow Caribbean person, Haitian people have such a strong liberatory history. So to watch her, I will just say be forced to watch her take the job and then have to say all those things. I was like, oh no, that's a rat. And then also the UN advisor was also a Black woman. The woman who kept saying no to ceasefire and raising her hand was also a Black woman. I was like,
that's
why
Linda
are we
Thomas Greenfield as a United States ambassador. That's that Black woman, Linda Thomas Greenfield, as the ambassador for the United States to the United Nations. We got leadership positions at the Department of Housing and Urban Development. That would be Marsha Fudge. To the Council of Economic Advisors and the Office of Management and Budget. Biden ensured that highly accomplished Black women with a range of experience could serve in diverse leadership positions. And I think that goes back to Nate Silver's thing. We had a president in decline, and I feel like Black women were put in a bind in his administration. But you know what? None of them will say that because they got good checks. So
of course not. None of them are ever going to say that.
Okay, Jeffrey Kaba Service says an apt symbol for an entire political tradition in desperate need of reinvention. He's saying for some historians, Biden's census was an is that how you say it? Senescence? That's a new one.
This is the Let us see what this means. I was like, I've never seen this word.
What happened to my
We're learning.
Look up.
Senescence, the condition or process of deterioration with age.
Oh, I'm gonna pocket that one. Put it in my pocket.
Biology.
Senescence. Okay. Okay, that's a good one. Biden's senescence was an irresistible metaphor for a Democratic Party that continued to think of itself as the rightful governing party long after it had forgotten how to govern. Biden's
Oh, this is
party
a good read.
Yes, Biden's party had lost the instinct for persuasion and compromise with potential partners in the Republican Party and even within its own rank, which led to the downfall of its most ambitious plans for voting rights and green infrastructure. It no longer remembered why it was important to prioritize from among the competing claims of its constituent groups, which led to an excessively large stimulus bill as well as unfocused legislation. They came with
Hmm.
too many irrelevant requirements and veto points to be implemented. The political left allowed the institutions in its orbit, universities, the media, the bureaucracy, foundations, think tanks, to forget their foundational principles and purposes. All right, you centrist.
Very centrist. It's very interesting because they're blaming the actual left wing of the liberal demographic for the problem, even though the liberal demographic did not listen to the left.
You know what? I think
Mm,
though, when a historian says political left, I would like to know who that includes, because when
me
they
too.
name, because to their point, universities are not radical institutions of liberation. Neither is the
Mm-mm.
media, neither is the bureaucracy, neither is the foundation, and neither are the think tanks. Those are all centrist institutions of power. And so the centrists who were so self involved, yeah, and if that's what you're considering the political left, because Republicans are the political right, then I do agree with this argument that while the Democrats continued to think of itself as a tribune of the working class, it lost touch with non college educated Americans of all races to such an extent that it failed to understand their concerns about inflation, public order, an insecure border, and an elite enamored with radical and deeply unpopular theories of race and gender. Okay, that is.
Now that no.
That is.
He had to put in his petite racism out
Mm,
because the elite are not. They do not care about actual critical race theory. If we're being
no.
honest, and the regular average white person does not know what critical race theory is because it is
I
not taught in school.
I just think it's crazy how like gender politics gets weaponized as like somehow destroying the children. Like the kids are on TikTok. I promise you, it's not the trans people that are ruining their brains. It's not them at all.
No,
You know what I mean? Like the kids were eating
it's
Tide
the
Pods.
iPad you gave them.
Yeah, it's not. It's not. And honestly, gender, a broader gender politic just allows for more rights for everyone. Women could
Mhm.
get far better care if we had better, broader gender understanding. If it wasn't so set on this binary of what means to be a woman and what it means to be a man, and therefore that what it means to be a woman is predicated on what it means to be a man, and all our policy is centered around that. Like, you want to get your tubes tied, you got to get your husband's approval in some states in
Which is
2024.
absolutely ridiculous. Because if you were to show the average man, and honestly, the average person in the United States, because we don't have very good sex education, most people don't even know what a fallopian tube would look like, or that it's even your tubes are fallopian tubes, which is sad.
Mm, mm, mm. The
Hmm.
absence of disaster is not a major achievement.
These political bites of what the people are writing are very funny.
Oh, I like Sarah Ego. She's at Vanderbilt. I've actually met her in person.
Ooh.
Let's see what she said. She's a professor of gender women's. She was head of the
Oh.
women's gender study program at Vanderbilt like a decade ago. That's how long I've been. Biden did not serve as a president in traditional times. The evaluation of U.S. presidency traditionally hinges on promises and reversals.
Hmm.
Okay, girl. But Biden, his single term in office was instead burdened from the start by urgent and still unanswered questions about the fate of America's democratic institutions. And so the measure and meaning of his presidency lies elsewhere, in Biden's inability to staunch or even slow the rise of chaotic, norm shattering, and authoritarian, authoritarian. Why am I tripping over myself? Authoritarian leaning politics embodied by the man who will both precede and succeed him in office. Okay, we closing
I
out
think
with praise.
I'm curious, there's only a couple more, if any of them are going to acknowledge a genocide,
All right, well,
which is
let's see if they'll
interesting.
I'm gonna skip to the historians whose books I own. No, what book do I have by Noe? Noe Rooks. I feel like they have a book about liberatory pedagogy. In some ways, it was the best of times. His administration forgave the debt of over 5 million student borrowers and provided 17 billion in support to historically black colleges.
I
But
hate that they're
also,
trying to tout that 5 million. That's not even a fraction of the people that owe student loans. But anyways, continue.
but
Sorry.
also during his administration, according to the National Illiteracy Institute, almost 67% of fourth graders and 69% of eighth graders read below rates considered proficient. In some states like California, 75% of black boys have reading scores so low they are considered illiterate. The ability to read is linked to higher voter turnouts, higher rates of employment, and the ability to exist above the poverty line. By any measure, these rates and numbers constitute the worst of times, and the silence from the Biden administration about them is simply perplexing.
Hmm.
Yeah, nobody talked about Palestine.
No, there is I go I just controlled F. It's mentioned one time in the entirety of the article,
Okay,
Gaza.
let me control F and go back.
Yes, and it is the only person that was from Sarah Ego. It's just one sentence at the bottom, at the top. That's it.
What do you, oh,
That's the only time it's mentioned.
what does she say?
Or it's Gaza, not Palestine.
Oh,
You know they don't like to use the word of the country.
on the stage, it would weigh Biden's successful rallying of Western nations in support of Ukraine and apparent clinching of a ceasefire agreement between Israel and Hamas in its twilight hours as a commander in chief against the disastrous pullout of U.S. troops from Afghanistan and a failure to prevent the massive death toll in Gaza. Okay, we got one. We got one.
One. That's it. Just tucked it in there, but also credited him for brokering a ceasefire deal when for 18 months he used US taxpayer money to give billions of dollars.
So to say, do we have
Fascinating.
a kind preview or review of Biden's? Mm.
No, I think he will. Honestly, this is very kind. I don't think history's going to remember him as kindly. I think if anything, history might remember him similarly to like George W. Bush, in that George W. Bush is memorialized as a bumbling idiot who did all the wrong things. But right after he left office, it was kind of like this, like lukewarm ish.
Mm.
And then slowly over the years, as more people came to realize that the invasion of Iraq was an entire farce, which unfortunately, because of him and Dick Cheney, resulted in the estimated death of 2 million Iraqis. Once all of that started to come out, history has not painted George W. Bush kind. Despite him trying to, give Michelle candy and be like, yeah, I'm a nice old man who paints now. Like, people don't like that man. I think Joseph will be the same.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, in the grand scheme of presidents, I do think I actually think that history will be a touch kinder to him than we are right now.
Maybe.
I think in
I
the
am
grand
personally agree.
scheme of presidents, if we are uplifting Bill Clinton as a great president, and we got TAM, we got the crime bill, we got NAFTA, you know, and
I think history
we still got 8 years of a Republican right after.
I think history, though, does remember the presidents who, even if they don't agree with what they pass, that they pass things and they go through their agenda kinder than people who like fumble around. I don't think history kindly remembers the fumblers and the bumblers. And
Mm,
Joseph very much, I mean, he has enough slippage of the tongue to where he's giving bumbler and fumbler.
mm-hmm.
And then also to Fran's question, the student debt relief was for folks who went to for-profit colleges, right? The majority of it, yes. And then the one thing I will give the Department of Education, they did fix the broken public service loan forgiveness program. It existed before and has existed for about a decade, but the approval ratings people actually get their loans forgiven under PSLF, public service workers, was less than 2%. So they did finally fix the program to actually work. So that is the one plus they can get. Sure.
Well, let's move over to Trump because today is his inauguration, and we got the most glorious stunt queen act this weekend with the 8:30 on January 18th shutdown of TikTok, where TikTok shut down their own servers at like 9 p.m. Eastern
Yeah.
Standard Time on the 18th, just to
Yeah.
put up a
Mine was like
notification.
10:40.
Yeah, oh, mine was earlier. Just to put up a notification talking about we're working with President Trump to bring it back. And thank you
Mhm.
to President Trump. The man wasn't even inaugurated. He's not even president
Nope.
yet. The day before his inauguration, y'all are thanking Trump for bringing back the app.
And I'm like, that's not how the law works. He technically has no power. And it's interesting the amount of propaganda TikTok it's out was fascinating because even leading up to the potential ban, TikTok at first, because Trump and his administration 2020, they initiated the idea of this ban. They initiated the legislation. It failed under him. It passed under Joseph Biden, and it was bipartisan in its passing. So he literally started the problem. So during the election, I did notice that the owner and president of ByteDance was cozying up to Trump. He went to Mar-a-Lago. They were donating money. They basically allowed so much propaganda on TikTok during the
Yes,
election,
yes.
clearly in an effort to try to save the app and in an effort to be like, okay, it's fine. Like, we'll deal with you. But it was so interesting to watch them roll out the propaganda. So specifically, the first one that I received said, and it pops up on the screen to your point, we are fortunate that President Trump has indicated that he will work with us on a solution to reinstate TikTok once he's in office. Please stay tuned! Exclamation mark. Then, once it was back up, then it said, welcome back. Thanks for your patience and support. As a result of President Trump's efforts, this is on the 19th. As of right now, 10/20, he's still not yet the president. I think the swearing in is currently happening. We're in the process, but it hasn't happened. As a result of President Trump's efforts, TikTok is back in the US! Exclamation mark. You can continue to create, share, and discover all the things you love on TikTok. And so
But you
they're rolling
cannot
out the
go
propaganda.
live and you cannot be paid from US views.
Oh, that is interesting.
So TikTok is celebrating Trump's inauguration now. They
Yes.
donated $50,000 to a party in honor of Gen Z Trump supporters.
Which Gen Z young men do skew more Trump support than prior generations. The interesting thing is because I follow like the tech trades, Morning Brew last week stated that this likely would happen, as well as the information stated TikTok might be gone for a day, but then Trump is going to try to reinstate it and he's going to get all the credit. So they already were forecasting that he would do this giant stunt. Nobody, I don't think anybody quite forecasted the level of propaganda that would go into it of TikTok then participating because there was no need for them to shut the app off. The law did not say turn the app off. The law said nobody can download the app and you are not allowed to make any updates to the app. So essentially, we'll let you have your little app, but it's going to deprecate and be obsolete in a couple months. TikTok decided to be Stunt Queen number 2 with Stunt Queen number 1, which that part I think is on brand for Trump. But also, I'm a little like, why are people that I know don't like him even making jokes about being like, oh, yay, thank you to Cheeto, which is wild. That part of it, I'm just like, oh, it's going to be a long 4 years or more.
It's gonna be a hot mess, but like you gotta just gotta let it come. You gotta let it come, and it's kind of crazy to see the way people's opinions are evolving about Trump because what is it? What's going on here? Snoop Dogg, Rick Ross,
Yeah.
Soldier Boy, Nelly, and they're all justifying it. Oh, we respect the office. He's the president. We got paid a lot.
I think it's interesting and should be noted that I sincerely do not think Snoop Dogg needs the money. he's talked about his financial stability and how he manages his finances very well, similarly to Shaq, in that they will endorse anything. Shaq got sued along with the rest of the celebrities for the crypto scam because he stated all the time, like, I endorse anything. I just live off my endorsements. And he has so much money, which is why he's such a jovial person most of the time, unless he's harassing his mentee, which was nasty. And Snoop Dogg is similar. So to me, that indicates that he really wants to and feels like he wants to be a part of the white 1%. And so he's like, yeah, I'm just going to do foolishness, which to me is more disheartening than seeing Nelly, who I think his money is funny. Do it. Like, all of it's rude and all of it's toothless and all of it's disheartening. But for you to do it just because you want to be white adjacent is crazy. Particularly after this was what he had said in 2017. Um, I can real quick. He's down there. We'll
I'm
let
gonna
him
stop
lose
sharing
him.
mine. When you share yours, something happens. But what is it?
Oh, let me. You're in. Okay, share. Only share. It's right under our bird in our dog. The Instagram.
Oh, from 2017 when he was
Yeah,
saying,
so yeah. And so we
"Oh,
go.
look at me, so many of me."
Hello.
Wait, oh my gosh.
I'm here somewhere.
I'm trying to take it off and it keeps adding it. Like hold on.
Oh, there you go.
Sorry guys, a little technical difficulty. You sent me the link. You put it in here. Okay.
Oh no, my voice sounds robotic. Is it fixed now?
Yeah, it's only when you share your screen something
Oh, okay, yes.
happens,
I
but
forgot that I can't share my screen on here. Sorry.
it's not just me.
Boo ass niggas gonna be the first one to do it.
Perfect.
I'm waiting. I'm gonna roast
Let's play it again.
Donald Trump, huh? Which one?
Come on, let's get it. Let's get it where we can.
So ain't nobody gonna perform for Donald Trump, huh? Which one of you jigaboo ass niggas gonna be the first one to do it? I'm waiting. I'm gonna roast the fuck out one of you Uncle Tom ass niggas for doing it. Which one of you niggas gonna do it first? Osby's the one that performs for himself. So ain't nobody gonna
Aged
perform
so
for Donald
well.
Trump, huh?
It aged so well.
Mm,
Hmm.
mm,
Hmm.
mm,
Hmm.
mm,
No self-respect. None.
mm.
I think it also now would be a great time. 20% of black men that voted did vote for Donald Trump. And that statistic is fascinating. And I think until we interrogate that, we're going to see more of Snoop, whatever luckless black celebrity doing things like this and then doubling down and being like, well,
I have a very
I respect
unpopular
office.
opinion about this.
Oh, do tell me.
I think the carcerality, the way we like carceral, right? We all want to punish everything. Like we talk about
Mhm.
accountability, this uptick about like labeling everything a narcissist. Everyone's a narcissist, narcissism. The the language of disposal,
Mhm.
calling black men bullet bags, saying Jeffrey Dahmer was a hero because he killed black men, even though he killed queer black men. But okay, um, this idea that like some like so like because of the trauma that patriarchy has imposed, even though patriarchy has no gender, because like I'm like everybody's violent in the black community. People be like, you're always correcting black women. Yeah, because I'm not a black man. Black men need to speak to other black men. I'm going to speak to people that are more likely to listen to me. We collectively, regardless of our gender, perpetuate harm via the maintenance of patriarchy. I know this sounds like a word salad, but like we all like this. As long as I'm standing by a man, Naziah Harris, my family good. You know, as long as I'm with a man, even if that man beats my child, we good. because I'm married.
Oh no.
Read Kiese Layman's Heavy. Like, you know what I mean? Like the way that we like this we use aesthetics to hide harm. Um I do think men can enact more direct violence because of just like the power of the body. Um but when we talk about like this, we talk about men in these disposal ways and we don't actually move the needle on correcting anything societally, and it's just, divest, get rid of them, fuck them, stay far away from them, they should all be in jail, where the people don't disappear.
Mm-hmm.
Where do they
It
go?
doesn't get to the root of the problem.
When you do counsel, that's like, is cancel culture effective? When you cancel all the powerful people, they just move their power over into another venue. When there's
Mm-hmm.
a boys club of like white men with lots of money who have been canceled, and we're not effectively changing societal structures, we're just getting one out at a time.
And we're not even getting them out. Look at Brett Kavanaugh. He allegedly inflicted a lot of harm on his classmate. He was asked about it during his Supreme Court hearing. He threw a temper tantrum, and he will be a Supreme Court justice for the rest of his life.
I think there's really hard work that we have to commit to doing, and I think a lot of people have been dissuaded from this idea of committing any labor to anything.
No, we got to get to labor. The Jamaican is here to tell you, time for labor.
Jordan, we got to get in the living room together and do some work.
We do.
No, that doesn't mean that like you need to date Dusties or you need to allow bad men into your life. But it does mean that we need to be having conversations with people. We need to be showing up in community. There are things that just aren't sexy to talk about. They're not fun. They're not cool. They're not viral conversations. We have to be in community with the YNs.
They do need some guidance and consequences. I am a fan of kindness is consequences.
Yeah.
Kindness is saying you did A, I told you not to do A, so now the consequence is B, C, and D.
Yeah.
It's not disposal, it is course correction. And I think particularly with these Black celebrities, they also do need some consequences and course correction. They thrive off of attention. They thrive off of this. Removing attention from somebody such as Snoop Dogg, I think maybe some type of course correction is possible because he very much cares what Black people think of him. Even though he's clearly going after white approval, I think he cares at a certain level.
I think at least when it comes to the Black men that are 20% voters, I think we also need to adhere to like the single digit percentage of Black women who voted for Trump. And we need to be engaging them in conversation where instead of trying to dunk on them immediately, we do engage with what was the starting point of how they got to that. And I will say, I don't necessarily feel like it's my responsibility to do that for Black men. Will I attempt? Will I make an effort? Sure. But I feel like Black men need to be talking to Black men.
Yeah. I think in general, men listen to other men, unfortunately, because of patriarchy.
And having these difficult conversations.
Yeah, because we gotta start somewhere.
I think I will say, men do a lot of patting on the back with each other. Oh, well, you look good, so it don't matter. It's all right. Yeah, I get your point. And, Christianity
is the root of all problems. So
well, Jackie Perry Hill, because like that, there was a girl who got on TikTok in her sorority jacket. She's a Delta, and was like, I voted for Trump. And so I went back through all her content, and then her like Neo got online in defense of her. And it was just like, but like we be reading the Bible together, and with God, it's everything, and you got to stop dunking on people. And I think that as somebody who has line sisters who veer towards conservatism through the church, that the way we talk about, it's bad. You know what I mean? A lot of conservatism gets forgiven through Christian discourse. Like Jackie Hill Perry has a whole anti-queer movement wrapped up, and like in that the girl that used to do the podcast with Simone B, what's her name? Megan Ashley or whatever. And there's a whole ecosystem of like Christian content that is, in my eyes, simply a pipeline for conservative politics.
It's interesting to me because the newest iteration of Black conservatism, not before, not the older iteration. I understand older Black people. The newest iteration of Black conservatism and saying, like, well, because of my beliefs, this is why I voted for Trump. Trump is not, there's nothing Christian like about him, which is why I'm always like, you do realize these other white Christians are white Christian nationalists.
But they get him
That
on
is a club.
ticket issues on abortion, on, well, even if he's not a Christian, he will push through Christian policy.
He's not going to push, he's going to push through white nationalist policies.
Well, what is Christianity in America? No.
White nationalism.
Okay, to close out on a bittersweet note, 90 Palestinian women and children were freed from Israeli prisons.
I loved watching the reunions of these women and children and the exuberance and the excitement of their families. It was very heartwarming to see because it shouldn't have happened in the first place.
I know somebody is knocking on my door.
Oh,
do it.
Not 10:34. Are they knocking or trying to get in?
I don't know. I'm on live. Like, why do it at all? Anywho, we're at the end anyway. We were closing out on this note.
Yes. To give some hopefulness to the steadfastness that has been the Palestinian liberation movement. And particularly, I would say, like, the Palestinian youth movement that has sustained a lot of that here in the United States as well. You know, the kidnapping of so many people, so many Palestinian people for Israeli prisons, it can never be understated enough. And the US, I don't think I've seen any US mainstream news outlets highlight this, which is the Israeli judicial system, Palestinians are convicted or they're not even tried at a 99% rate. So the minute you are arrested, they hold you in undetermined detention. And you don't need a law degree to see that is absolutely abhorrent and ridiculous. So they're essentially just kidnapping people and putting them in prison. And that rate alone
Why do they have 90
is
children locked up?
Say it again.
Why do they have 90 women and children locked up?
Exactly. Women and children doing nothing besides existing.
69 women, 21 boys, and some as young as 12 years old from the occupied West Bank in Jerusalem. Among them, Khalida Jarrar, 62, a leading member of the leftist Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, who had been held for 6 months in solitary confinement under administrative detention, which allows Israeli authorities to jail suspects indefinitely without charge or court verdict.
Yes. So the majority of people are held under administrative detention, and the rest of the people go through sham trials that has a 99% conviction rate. Israel is not now, nor has it ever been, a democracy or a free state or any of the things that the U.S. is trying to lie and make it out to be.
This is crazy. This is crazy just that we are living through these kind of times. I wish I could part ways with something warm. Stephanie, your face.
I know, I'm trying not to cry because I'm just like, it's just awful. It's just awful.
Oh, no,
it's just awful. That's why I'm like, Joseph will get no kindness from me. I will be 80 years old being like, that mother, like, Joseph will get no kind remembrance from me. None.
It's okay. I think the best things we can do right now is log off the internet, embrace our community, be invested in community.
Yes. Especially now. Ooh. Now is not the time for isolation, and now is really not the time to your point, now is not the time to write off anything. Now is the time to be like, okay, let me try this conversation with this fool in my life and bring them to sense. And if I didn't bring them to sense, at least I tried. I think now is the time for that because we're in for a bumpy ride, friends. That's the only hopefulness I got.
2 years. 2 years.
Yes. And so now is the time, and I actually was talking to my friend about it earlier because I would like to do some campaigning and some fundraising. We need a new iteration of the Democratic Party.
Y'all got a mayoral election coming up in New York.
We do.
Get Eric Adams
in New York,
out of here.
I will be knocking on the doors.
We
Y'all
gotta
will
get on
see
the
me.
ground. We gotta support. We gotta do something. You know what I mean? Gotta get in the
Yeah,
room and do the work. It's
yeah,
gonna.
because we can't get stuck like this.
I do think in some ways it will be.
I hope so. Like, I listen, not to chastise anybody. However, clearly TikTok is a little bit of social media in general is clearly very addictive. People are very excited that they got their, favorite thing of choice back. Something that I did want to see. I was like, wait, where was like the collective community effort from the avid TikTokers to get on the ground and be like, no, you can't take my thing away, actually. So I think we need to all get on the ground. That's all. That's where I'm at.
All right. Thank y'all for tuning in. See you Wednesday at 9:30 a.m. Subscribe to the Twitch because we need 50 folks. We're gonna have to promote. We're gonna promote.
We are. And subscribe to the YouTube too, and like and comment. We'll be back. And don't turn on the inauguration today. It's going to hurt your spirit. There's no need to watch it. For what?
Love you guys.